Hello, Gavin here, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at building this pedal board. So recently I decided that I've taken too long of a break from writing some music, and I figured the best way to do this was to take my bass guitars, through some pedals along with the drum machine, and just write some music that wouldn't typically come from the bass guitar, using the looper and different effects. Not sure whether on the recording I'll actually use the looper. I might just layer the sounds up in Ableton like they're being looped. Gives me a bit more control when mixing and mastering, but ultimately all the songs will be written using the looper pedal. But to do this, I had to build myself a pedal board. So we're going to jump back a couple of days and watch me building that. So I'm about to build the board for my solo bass project. Going into this, I'm going to build the pedal board today, get the pedals I think would work well together for the project, all on the board, and that's going to be it set. That's the pedals I'm using to write this project. So for this pedal board, I'm using a Harley Benton Spaceship 80, which is a really nice size pedal board. It's really the same idea as the Palmer Pedal Bay 80, which is a cool size board as well. And I reckon using the DC7 from Chalks as a power supply and a few batteries as well in these boxes from Practical Patch and Dan Electro, I should get about 14 or 15 pedals. So that's a lot to work with in a recording. So I'm going to start building it, and before I do anything else I'm going to put some paper down across the Velcro, because some of these pedals, in fact most of them, have Velcro on the back of them, and it makes the job so much easier if you're not having to constantly peel pedals off the board, at least for getting down the basic layout. So let's get stuck into the build. So I'm pretty happy with this layout I've got just now. Everything's pretty easily accessed. The delay sits a little bit low, so I might have to work on that a little bit, try and get that raised up slightly. But other than that, it's all coming together quite well. Slightly higher pedal count than I would have hoped for, but I'm pretty sure between the Chalks, doing some daisy chaining, which I'm not a huge fan of, but for this it should work fine. The Chalks can handle it pretty well, and there's quite a lot of analog pedals on the board, so that should work okay. So between that and the power supplies from the batteries, should be able to power everything fine. So I'm going to have a little break for a minute, take a quick photo of this so I can get the layout the same. Then I'll be taking all the pedals off the board, wiring up all the power underneath, placing all the battery packs and the Chalks DC7, and then I'll start putting all the pedals on and getting everything wired up. So let's get stuck into that now. So now that the board's finished, we're going to look through some of the changes I made after filming. There was only 1 or 2 changes, but they were pretty major changes. The big one being that I moved the Burford UFO out of loop number 3, and that's now in loop number 1 with the drive. So the revised signal chain is now still going in at the fuzz and using the Gojira Octaver and Ernie Ball delay within the effects loop of the fuzz. If you want to know more how that works, there's a link in the description to the pedal I released a couple of weeks back all about that pedal. The first change that might come up actually is this Ernie Ball delay might be coming out when something new arrives. And then loop 1 is still the deluxe drive from Bad Penny Effects, which is the Marcus Deluxe signature pedal, really cool. But now I also have the UFO from Burford Electronics in the same loop. This tremolo really likes to see the signal from a fuzz or an overdrive, like a really strong signal to get the best from the pedal, so it was better to move it earlier in the signal chain. But then loop number 2 is still the OC2 set for a sub-octave and the Gojira octave up to give me that lead solo octaver sound with the fuzz or overdrive. It actually sounds really cool on its own as well, but you might hear that in some of the songs. Loop number 3 is the Carl Martin optical envelope, which is high pass, band pass and low pass filters. And after that the PH3 from Boss, which is a really cool phaser pedal. I have a hard time settling on just one modulation on the board, but if I'm going to have just one, that's the one it's going to be. And loop number 4 is the Retracer delay from EBS, which is a really cool delay pedal, which I do have set clocked by, well, not the looper, it's clocked by the drum machine, but we'll come back to that in a second. That's running into the Roommate Junior from T-Rex for the normal sort of reverbs, and then from there we're running into the Spectral reverb from G-Labs, which is the Shimmer synth pad type reverbs. But now what I've added in this loop is this foot switch, which is a true bypass effects loop, kind of like the Bad Penny, but it has hardwired cables into it, which are these ones. And that's running to a volume pedal, so I can now do volume swells of whatever I have in loop 4 and anything before it, which is a really cool effect to have for synth pads and things like that. The other really cool thing though is if I don't want to use the volume pedal, I can just flick that switch and it bypasses it completely, like that pedal was never there. So that's a really cool box that Practical Patch built for me. And in fact, all of the cabling on this board, all signal cabling and MIDI, all of that was made by Practical Patch. He builds all of my cables, including the guitar leads up in the corner that might be out of shot, and they're just fantastic cabling. I don't really want to use anything else on my pedal board, it's just fantastic. But then from the end of that loop switcher, I go into the radial. Now the radial, as I mentioned earlier, is just allowing me to channel switch between what side of the looper I'm using. And then from there I'm running into the Ditto X4 looper, which, like I say, that will probably get replaced at some point because it's not the greatest looper in the world. It's not as perfect at replicating your recorded sound as some other loopers on the market, so that's probably going to get changed at some point, but it'll do the trick for this. And from that, one output is running into the Eden WTDI preamp, and that's running DI to my interface, and the other output runs to the Mark Bass combo behind me, which is running the DI from that into my interface as well. Some things that might change, like I say, the Ernie Ball and the tap tempo switch for it might come off when the different delay arrives. Really, there's a lot of pedals on the shelf that I'd love to have had on this board as well. More modulations, the Mr. Sparkle, the Sono preamp from Xander, that's amazing. The Mangler, which is the goalie pedal back there. Some fantastic pedals, but you just don't have enough room on the board for all of it. But then there's always future projects, maybe a second part of this solo EP where I could change the board up for those, so who knows, we might get a completely different pedal board build in the near future. You'll have also likely noticed that the volume pedal from Practical Patch has come off the board. That's purely because I didn't have enough room to use that as well, just totally ran out of space. But that's still a really cool thing to have. I kind of wish I had space for it on the board, but some things have to go. And you'll have likely noticed as well that I haven't cable tied anything firmly in place yet. Power cables are loosely cable tied in place, and I've not cable tied any of the signal cabling. That's because it's still a work in progress. Like I say, this is the board for just now, but there's a couple of pedals, especially the Ernie Ball, that might change. So once all that's done and I know what I'm really using for it, I'll tighten everything up and make it a bit neater underneath. Because it's really important to keep a pedal board neat and tidy if it's being left in one piece, if you're not tearing it down every 5 minutes. really the cable runs should be considered, and when it comes to actually recording this, I will make sure all the cable runs are neat, not having power and signal cables running in parallel, because that's just a recipe for noise issues, which you really don't want that on a recording. So once this is all set in stone, and I've played with it for a couple of days, I will cable tie all of that in place. The one thing that I would drastically change on the next version of this pedal board is the power. I've successfully managed to get it all powered up, which I think is about 17 pedals. Not really counted properly since building it, but I think it's around about 17 pedals. The only thing that I'm not happy with is I've had to daisy chain off of the chocks and run batteries. The batteries I'm totally happy to do, because I do that a lot for my fuzzes and things like that anyway, but I'm not a big fan of daisy chaining. I've not got any digital background noise or anything like that, so I've been quite fortunate with this build because there's a lot of analog pedals, but really I'm still not happy with that, so I think I might have to get a chocks expander at some point in the future just to give me another 8 outputs. I will also say that there's not been any sponsorship in this video. All of these pedals were picked purely because I really enjoy using them, and I have to say I'm really happy with the range of sounds I have for writing this EP. So I think that's enough speaking from me. I'm going to play you a track that I've written and recorded using this pedal board and the drum machine, which is a TR-8 from Roland. And actually that's what's clocking the Ditto X4 and the retracer delay, passing MIDI through both of them. Another thing that, as I said, that might change, I might add a MIDI control box just to make it a little bit more stable. But like I say, we're about to listen to that song, which actually will be available via the link in the description for free. You can download that from my Bandcamp at the same time as this video goes live. So if you have any questions about this pedal board or the EP that I'm recording, please leave them down in the comments section, because I'd love to speak to you all about this project. So thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit like and subscribe down below, clicking the bell icon to be notified of more content when it comes out. And until next time, keep working on those bass faces.